Hi folks, we're Taskless today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, and I don't want to get too philosophical with you all, but the perceptions of reality. Now, I'm going to put an interesting sort of thought experiment up for you all. I've noticed that the methods of logic that I use to arrive at a conclusion, the mental processes, the mental gymnastics, or whatever you want to call it, that I go through to reach a conclusion or to make sense of complexity, those mental processes aren't shared by everybody, but they are shared by a number of people. I've noticed that there's some people around the world, so they're not like my neighbours or something, people around the world who they're very similar. I would say exactly that same thing. I would think about that in just the way they have. So there's a guy in Germany, a guy in England, a guy in Canada, and two people in the United States. And they, not all the time, they don't agree with everything, and we don't think exactly the same way about all issues, but the amount of times that their thinking process is almost exactly the same as mine is uncanny. There can't be just some sort of bullshit coincidence or something like that. Now, just to sort of explain, we're all in roughly the same age range. Maybe I think there's between the oldest and the youngest, there's probably 7 or 8 years maybe. And so they're all around my age, like I'm 62. Okay, so they're all in that age range. We all seem to have come through similar. So we're all reasonably diligent students at school. We all went to government schools, not expensive private Ivy League schools. We all went to sort of the nearest convenient universities. So they second or third tier universities, really. They weren't the Ivy League stuff, but we all got there on merit. We all went into STEM fields. And we all achieved some sort of supervisory managerial level in the STEM fields. So we all grew up in roughly the same socioeconomic type neighborhoods. And so given that, but the spread of countries, so we're talking, Australia, Germany, Canada, the United States, Britain, five countries, and we're all the same. It's incredibly similar how we arrive at. So I'm doing some sketch notes for a video to put together, and I see some other guy on YouTube's loaded a video about the subject, and I'm thinking, wow, that's almost exactly the way I would express it. Well, I would say it that same way. Well, he's hit what he sees are the main issues in exactly the same order and given exactly the same level of importance that I would give to it. And that's now one of those people, by the way, just to mention a name, is Ramsey Paul. And if you haven't sort of seen his vids, he's got a channel. He's just started a new format, which I quite like, by the way. But he's, I often find that he and I, and again, we're about the same age, very similar backgrounds. We went into STEM and that we arrive at the same way. So I'm thinking, okay, well, why doesn't everyone or many people or most people have the same views? Why is it that Ramsey Paul and the other people that I mentioned stick out as being, well, I think about that about the same way as he does. Because what draws us to that process of logic to think through issues in a certain way? Now, we haven't all done like computer coding or something, it isn't just the same, the same commercial disciplines, for example. One guy's done electrical engineering, another guy's done so it's all STEM, by the way, but in different fields of STEM. So I sort of wonder about this, that are we hostage to our upbringing and our attitudes? Now, I have attitudes that are considered strange by some. For example, I believe democracy is the expression of the will of the people. Now, you can call it a republic, call it what the fuck you like, but it's the people voting to choose their government. I believe the governments are responsible to the people. Now, that's all changed. The governments now are responsible to the globalists. And there are those that say, well, we shouldn't let the people have a vote. Only a small number of morally superior people should be allowed to decide the government. Those people down there, and the media class, which which owned by the globalists, they frequently deride the voters as Nazis. They're all Nazis anyway. What, we don't have to listen to them. Whatever they vote for, too bad, screw them. And I'm alarmed by this. I thought, no. Democracy is the will of, you have to do you are the representatives of the people. You can't go and represent the globalists. So I'm deeply concerned by that. I think it's a terrible thing. But there are plenty of people out there who think it's a good thing. No, we can't have the hoi polloi, plebeians, Nazis making decisions about government. They just can't do it. And only the Jewish lesbian elite can make those decisions. No one else is. That sort of thing. And I think that's very alarming. And I see that as an Armageddon sort of type scenario, but not everyone does. When there are people around, that I know, that I interact with, where when I suggest that democracy is an expression of the will of the people, they almost laugh at me. You're a raving idiot. You're a madman to even say that. And what you want that guy waving a swastika? Do you want him to have a say on who gets go? Well, yeah, if he's a citizen of this country, yeah. And if we think he's misguided in waving swastikas around, not that they exist, these people, they're all a figment, they're all an invention anyway. But if we think he's misguided, then we have the opportunity to put in front of him better policies, better ideas, superior way of doing things, and that will convert him. But we have to convince him of that. We can't threaten to kill him if he doesn't agree with us. That's not how it works. But these people are quite happy with this. The idea of killing, especially all ideological fanatics, the idea of killing someone because they don't agree, that's fine. That's all right. So there are views that I have regarding charity. I think it's important that we should be charitable to our fellow citizens. And, I would and do donate time to charitable causes, my time. And I think that's important. Some say, well, are you some bleeding heart Christian or Bible back? No, none of those things. I do believe in the charity. And I believe in the teachings of, or the parables at least, teachings of Jesus, the Good Samaritan. If someone's at the side of the road needing assistance, then you would help them, that sort of thing. Not that it isn't exploited by people with nefarious intent, but I still believe in that. I believe in merit. I believe that hard work is better than sloth. I believe that you should try to do the best you can do. And that means hard work, or in the case of school or study, hitting the books and all that. So I believe in that. I believe that people who come first should be revered because they've worked hard to get there. And that should be revered, rather than, you came first, you Nazi, fascist, white, supremacist, swastika waving, Hitler. No. That person worked hard to get there. So I believe in merit. I don't believe in employing people on the basis of race and gender quotas. I think that's evil, because it just transfers the cost of that onto productive people, and they then have to wear that burden, and passes the cost on the people who can't afford it. The employment of all these people in government that are just useless parasites. There's taxes there that we have to pay because of that, and so on and so. So I believe in these things. I believe that the courts should be 100% focused on facts and evidence, and the idea of restorative justice, and you should be lenient because they're a black lesbian. I think that's terrible for society. So I believe in these things, but the number of people that also believe in that are just even the neighborhood I live in, or the people I interact with day to day. I couldn't say that there are many people, if any. I can go for weeks without coming across anyone that might even possibly share some of those views. So does that make me, and the people I've mentioned who think as I do, does that make them just products of their environment? You could say we're the classic mobile kids of the mobile middle class, diligent, conscientious parents that imbued us with the idea of hard work, the Christian teachings of charity and honesty and these sorts of, is that a delusional state of mind to be in, given how few people seem to have those views today? Be they disagree with them, they don't understand them, or they believe them, or the globalists at least believe them to be an impediment to the globalist project. It doesn't really matter, but very few people believe in that. I believe that the media should be honest and they should speak absolute truth and fact to power instead of being a bunch of insane propagandists, which we see today. I think that's terrible. Whereas there's a lot of people say, no, the hoi polloi plebs, we have to tell them lies, otherwise they'll get in the way, and so it's our duty to lie to them and deceive them and engage in treacherous activities and that. So this is the things. Given only the small number of people, not simply the believers I do, but use the same or very, very similar processes of logic to arrive at the conclusions. That in particular is of interest to me. Why do so few people have those processes of logic? Or why do they tend to come, certainly by my observation, why do they tend to come from a fairly narrow base? And they all seem to come from white countries. I haven't come across a single person that thinks this way that isn't from a white country. And I'm sure that has something to do with it. Now, if that is so, and we're losing people with there's fewer and fewer people with the capability of process of logic. And I mean, you can almost go back to Descartes' methods of reasoning here as a baseline, but the idea of applying logic and rationality to not only identifying and quantifying a problem, but in proposing possible solutions or actual solutions to the problem. There's not many people left who seem to be able to do that. Now, maybe they're out there and they're just in hiding. They've got jobs to protect and this sort of thing. Maybe I better not think this way, or let people know I think this way, or I might lose my job. There can be that as well. But it's interesting to see that. But again, I come back to the question of, well, am I delusional? Maybe I'm the dumbest fuck in the whole universe, and I've got an IQ of minus 100 million or something. But is it a delusional state to say, well, let's apply processes of logic to understanding and solving this? I don't think it is, but that's how I was brought up. Now, I don't share the same views as my parents, far from it, actually. So it doesn't come just from them. They're teachers that I go back, say at school or college, and I disagree with most of them. There's few of them I could say, well, I really agreed with Jimmy Jack or Billy Bob. So it hasn't come from that. So it's the forces, the formative forces that shaped my views and attitudes are the same forces that were in existence in the United States that shaped the Ramsay Poor, shaped the ideas of the guy in Canada, the guy in England, and indeed the guy in Germany. The guy in Germany is an outlier, the different language and the different Weltanschauung and that sort of stuff, but still he came pretty much to the same place. If I gave all of those guys a problem to solve, they would pretty much all arrive at the same conclusion, more or less, the same conclusion, but they would have gone through the same process of logic to get there. And that's, I think, the interesting thing. But if we are indeed a hostage to our upbringing, circumstances, environment, and how is it that the forces that shaped us across different continents, different societies, different languages, how come the forces that shaped us, again, roughly the same age group, how is it that we've arrived at almost the same place, but with very different, subsidiary influences that are there? Thought experiment for you all. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.